Well, it feels like forever since I made a simple full tang stock removal knife, so in today's video I'll be christening my new shop with this build. For anyone who has gone through the process of moving their shop, you know that it takes a while to figure out where everything is and establish a new flow. I found that while you can try to plan your shop setup in advance, the best way to really get it all going is to make something in the new space. I cut away a couple times in this video to comment on a shop improvement I tackled along with this project. One of my largest and most recent upgrades was a dedicated grinding room, which y'all will be getting some operational views of in a few minutes. If you're interested in its construction, check out the dedicated video I posted on its build a few months back. When making this knife, I for sure shook my head a few times and laughed because it's amazing how rusty I've become. Some of these skills are best practice with consistent repetition, and in my case I had to remember some of the steps and processes I've used successfully in the past, especially on the fine details. What y'all just watched me do was cut out this profile from some 1/8 of an inch 1084 high carbon steel from Pop's Knife Supply, and then get that profile refined on the grinder. While the steel is in its delivered annealed state, I drill my pinholes in the handle. These number 13 holes will be accepting the shafts from the standard 1/4 inch Corby fasteners. I also make sure to get the filing of the spine, jimping, and the sharpening choil completed before heat treating the blade. Now I'm not going to be showing much of this process, but at this point I had to stop the project and install a 220 volt 20 amp circuit that I'll be using from my DIY heat treating oven and my hydraulic press. I brought my pre-ground blank up to 1525 degrees and quenched in Parks 50. Unlike a lot of my previous builds, I did not clamp this blade in my straightener, and I let it fully cool in the oil. While I like the straightener in concept, I always felt like there was too much guesswork in gauging how long to keep the blade in the oil before removing it and putting it into plates. If pulled too early, you may lose hardness, and if pulled too late, you may get a crack. So I'm opting for a different method with this build. After the quench, we went straight to the tempering oven at around 403 degrees for its first 2-hour tempering cycle. With one cycle out of the way, we can start trying to address any major warping with some clamps counterbending during the second cycle. We still have a slight warp in this blade after the second tempering cycle, which is easily seen on the surface plate. To correct this, I'll be using Kyle Daly's carbide-tipped straightening hammer. I love this thing, and it takes the stress out of removing warps in my opinion. You basically peen the valley of your warps to slightly expand the metal and thus straighten your blade. I'm sure there is a limit on how much of a warp these hammers can remove, which is why I try to knock out the bulk of the bend in the second tempering cycle in the oven. The divots left behind by this hammer will be ground away. Make sure not to put divots close to the edge of the knife's profile to prevent issues during the finishing process. The next step for me will be to use my DIY surface grinding attachment to clean up the flats. If I were doing this all again, I think I would clean up the profile of the knife first, then the flats, but it's not the end of the world to do it in this order. At this point, if I remember right, I got everything up to around a 220 grit belt finish. I also went ahead and cleaned up the sharpening choil with some sandpaper wrapped around the needle file on a hand drill. Using some spray marking fluid and a height scribe on my surface plate, I marked a grinding target midway along the blade. The goal here will be to grind this edge down to around 10 to 15 thousandths of an inch. With a worn belt, I came in at an aggressive angle and formed my initial bevel. I then gradually started working this bevel back towards the spine. Over the last few years, I've become accustomed to work rest grinding, and it's on my list for 2026 to put together a tutorial since it is now my preferred grinding method. Note that I'm cooling the blade in my water bucket after each long pass to ensure that we do not damage the heat treatment. New sharp belts and a moderate speed on the VFD also help a lot. As far as pre versus post heat treatment grinding goes, I find myself doing more pre-grinding on my forged knives and more post-heat treatment grinding on my stock removal knives. Honestly, I generally do whatever I feel like doing at the time since there are pros and cons of each method. I think there is likely a happy medium for me when I pre-grind 50% of the bevels, leaving some nice large flats about halfway up the blade, and then finishing the rest of the grinding post-heat treatment. This is what I'll likely do on the next knife that I make. I ground these bevels up to a 220 grit finish on the belt grinder and then hit them with a Scotch-Brite belt. Overall, I think I should have been less lazy and taken more time here, going up to a 320 grit belt finish since I won't be hand sanding this blade. On the handle scales, I started with some 1/4 inch G10 scales and then glued in some black and red G10 liners. I really like adding liners to my knives, firstly because they look cool, and secondly because they give me more scale thickness to work with. So as I'm working on the handle for this guy, I noticed that there isn't a bunch of light in my area over here. I do have this large LED right above, but I feel like there needs to be a light there to give me some more direct beams down on my work because I'm getting a bunch of shadows over here. In addition, I'll be doing the handle drilling on this guy next. And over here by my mill, it's super dark. So I'll be putting some lights across here. I'm basically just going to keep adding lights until I can see very well in these areas. As far as exactly where to put them, I am kind of confused on whether I should put them a little further towards the wall so the light comes down at an angle towards me, or a little bit behind me. And what may happen is I do both. So I'm going to get up in the attic and start installing some lights. I got these triple 4-foot LEDs from Prime Lights and have been really happy with their performance. They're also in my grinding room and have proven easy to install around the shop. While they're not the absolute cheapest I could find, they are a great value in my opinion. One nice thing about these lights is it has this little push connector here, and you can actually have 2 lines coming in. So one of these is going to be going to another set of lights. So that's pretty convenient there. All you gotta do is push these in. I did the blacks already. I'm gonna do the neutrals next, and then we'll get back up in the attic. To drill my handle scales, I'm using the sandwich method by drilling through the knives pre-drilled holes in the Tang and then passing through my clamped scales. With the number 13 holes drilled, I marked out, rough cut, and ground in the profile of the scales. At this point, before the glue up, you need to finish out the front of the handle scales. I'm using a work rest at an angle to rough them in evenly, and then sanding up to 1000 grit before buffing. I accidentally started etching my blade for the stonewashing before putting in my maker's mark, so that is why you see that the blade is slightly dark during my lasering. The X-Tool F1 Ultra, like always, made quick work of this maker's mark etch. With the maker's mark in and cleaned up, I acid etched the blade to get it darker in color before putting it in my improvised rock tumbler. I generally run this rock tumbler for around 15 minutes on the grinder. To counterbore my scale holes for the Corbies, I used a washer to set my mill's depth stop. This will ensure that all 4 holes are drilled to the same depth. Next up, we'll be gluing on the scales. As always, we start off by cleaning everything with some alcohol. You want all of your mating surfaces to be clean in order for the epoxy to bond well. For the epoxy, I'm using the gold standard G-Flex. This stuff has a decently long working time, so there's no rush here to get everything put together. Just coat everything up with epoxy and assemble the handle. Obviously, it's best practice to make sure your handle components all fit together before mixing up the glue. I moderately tighten the Corbies with 2 screwdrivers at the end. You wouldn't want to go too tight here and squeeze out all the epoxy or twist off a Corbie, but not too loose either. I guess it's kind of a feel thing with these Corbies. Maybe one day I'll work on getting a torque setting for this operation. With the handle together, I take great care to clean up any epoxy on the front of the scales with Q-tips and then let the assembly cure for 24 hours. The next thing I do on the handles is get the Corbies ground flush. Take care during this part of the process since you don't want to heat up the Corbies too much and affect the epoxy. With the sides flat, I set the grinder in its horizontal orientation and bring the G10 scales down to the profile of the steel. As I get closer to the steel, I'll switch to a 220 grit belt so as not to put deep scratches that would need to be fixed later. I won't be doing anything too fancy on the shaping of this handle, but to give it a better feel in the hand, I slightly taper the scales towards the tip. Once again, make sure to take your time here so as not to overheat the Corbies. After the tapering, I round over the scales along the length of the handle and then use a 2-inch rubber contact wheel to round over the edges. I've gotten more comfortable with this contact wheel over the course of the last few buoy builds that I've done. Lastly, on the handle grinding, I use the slack belt to smooth everything up. The nice thing about this method is that you're pretty much done with the shaping of the handle at the end of the grinding and just need to make some fine adjustments on the hand sanding bench. I get the handle sanded up to 1000 grit and then I buff. I apologize for accidentally not turning on the camera when buffing, but it's the same process I used for the front of the handle scales earlier. To accelerate the process, I knock off the corners and start developing the secondary bevel on my 2x72 belt grinder. The bulk of the sharpening will be done on the Wicked Edge Pro, but I like kicking it off with a grinder at a slow speed in order to reduce the time needed with the stones. I have a full review of this sharpener and its predecessor on my channel, and I gotta say it's my favorite sharpening method for my knives. I like that the guesswork is taken out of the process with these set angles, and have yet to had an issue getting a super sharp knife with this system. I bring the secondary bevel up to a 600 grit stone, and then strop with leather and a little bit of diamond compound. With the knife oiled up and stored away, it's time to start making the sheath. I'm going to be making a leather pouch sheath for this knife and will be cutting out the template on my X-Tool F1 Ultra. One of the cool things about this laser is that it has both a fiber laser and a diode laser on board, so it can etch steel and then cut more natural materials like leather when combined with the conveyor belt. I start my work on the template by edge beveling the mouth of the sheath and the belt loop. For this project, I ordered the cheapest burnishing drum I could find off of AliExpress with some 10mm threaded rod. I'll put a link to this guy along with the other tools and products I used in this video in the video description below. I started off by putting this burnisher in my lathe, but eventually started using my mini mill due to the higher RPMs that the mini mill can run. I put a little quick slick on my edge and then burnished. I then dampened the sheath where my maker's mark will be located and pressed it in with my arbor press. Now it's time to glue down and stitch up the belt loop. I like to use a washer to lay out a circular stitch line on my belt loop because in my opinion, it looks very clean this way. Once I have my holes spaced out with the pricking irons, I use a large needle on my mini mill to puncture the holes all the way through, and then on the inside I use a stitch groover to ensure that the stitches will lay flat on the inside of the sheath. I don't have a sewing machine and will be stitching the sheath utilizing 2 harness needles and a locking saddle stitch. Next up is getting the welt glued into the sheath. I trace the welt with a pencil so that I know where to apply some leather glue, and then lay the welt into the glue. The process is then repeated on the other side before carefully bending the sheath so that the edges made up perfectly. I then let the sheath dry for a bit with the clamps, and then level off all the layers with my 2x72 belt grinder. At this point, I'll be laying down a stitching groove, marking out my holes with pricking irons, and puncturing the holes with the mill. I generally come back at this point and put a stitch groove along the back of the sheath so as the stitches lay flat. While I was doing this, I slipped and gouged the leather. Obviously, I was not very happy about this, but mistakes happen. I hope that with time and wear, this scratch will become less noticeable on the sheath. Once I had some time to take some deep breaths and get all the cursing out, I then stitched up the full length of the sheath. Now, if anyone is more interested in a more detailed overview of pouch sheaths, I have a full tutorial on the channel outlining these methods. At the end, I coated the sheath with some neatsfoot oil and then back coat, and finally I burnished the main edge. Well, this is how she turned out. The first knife in the new shop is now complete. Things I like about this is the G10 here with the kind of camo on the sides and the red liners. I think that looks really cool. The overall feel in the hand is nice. It's big. If you have big hands, this is perfect. I really like the taper and how it's thinner at the front on the scales and how it gets a little bit thicker towards the back. That always makes it feel like it's going to stay in the hand better. As far as the things that I don't like, I probably should have gone up to a higher grit finish on the grinding. You can kind of see some of the grind lines through the stone washing. And, I don't love it, but it is a working knife, so that's probably not the end of the world. Speaking of grinds, the tops of my bevels here probably aren't perfectly symmetrical. They're close, but like I said, this isn't a safe queen. This is going to be a using knife. I don't love how this section here kind of etched a little different around the maker's mark. It looks a little splotchy, I guess, and I don't know if that had something to do with the cleaning process before the etching, or maybe some variation in the heat treating caused a little bit of splotchiness there. Overall, though, I think it'd be a fairly good performer. I did end up making a sheath for it, a little pouch sheath. Pretty basic here. I didn't do any tooling. I did have, actually you can see here, I slipped on my stitch groover on the back, and I put a little scratch in it, but it is what it is. I don't want to pitch the entire sheath just because of one scratch, but I wasn't happy about it when it happened. Other than that, though, I really like how the sheath turned out. I think it'll be, once again, a good user. As far as how it fits, knife just goes right in, and the friction kind of holds it in there. It's tight. If the user ever wanted to, when they get the knife in their home, they could wrap it in plastic and do a wet form, but I don't know if that's really necessary because it does have a nice hold. So yeah, that's the package. I haven't made up my mind whether I'll keep this one for a white elephant or something coming up on Christmas, or if I'll put it on the website. So by the time I release this video, I will have made that decision. And if I'm selling it, I'll put a link to this knife in the description below and the top comment. As always, if y'all enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below and consider subscribing to the channel. Until the next time, I'll catch y'all on the flip side.